I think what it winds up being for me is like, I feel like what I've specialized in and what I've made kind of like a business off of now with League is like, I try to make the game easier to digest for somebody who isn't like you and me.
Oh no, that's perfectly understandable, honestly, because most of the people that I've seen getting into League at this point, right? Because not that many people get into League, I think, at this point, because they think there's too many things to learn, right?
Yep.
Too many new items, too many champions. Usually need stuff like that, right? Like they need people to like help them out with that. But at least like the coaching that I was talking about, right? It was more for like just seeing how much I could help improve like a high level player. Because for lower level players, right, it's like there's a lot. Then the moment the match starts, you immediately start noticing the mistakes they're making, right? And you know that you can tell them what their mistakes are, right? And they'll improve on it, and it'll help them out. But the overall amount of mistakes that they do is so big that they just need to focus on one thing at a time, right? Like whether it's like trading a little better or CSing a little better, thinking about matchups, etc. Like they just focus on that one thing, and then they literally go from like silver 3, for example, to like silver 1 because they focused on like this one fundamental really well.
So right? you would have loved the boot camp that I did, the first one, because the whole premise was like the app that we had was essentially like a bunch of concepts. I love how you framed it, because it was just a bunch of concepts. Like I made a bunch of guides that were exclusive to the boot camp that were like, hey, you know, we're going to work on CSing. Like, this is how you improve CSing. Or, hey, we're going to work on diving. This is how you improve diving. Or, hey, we're going to work on offense, defense, like laning, which is something, by the way, we could talk about with you that I think you're exceptional at. And I find it funny because I feel like all the high elo Riven guys are so much better at laning than the average player. Like, why do you think that is? Like, is it just because of the champion's kit just being so?
I think one of the main things is that when you're playing Riven, the champion is so overloaded in terms of like mobility and damage that you have so many more options to deal with your opponent than your opponent. Your opponent only has one thing they can do to you, right? One or two things based on their kit. Riven just has the ability to like permanently stay in your face, forcing you to do things while also being safe, right? So it feels like it's overwhelming. It feels like she's doing a lot of stuff to you constantly, but it's mostly because of the kit. Because all the other champions have the same capability of just going into your range, right, and constantly bidding out auto attacks or bidding out abilities, but it's not the same because with Riven it just feels overwhelming, right? She dashes or move or like dodges your ability, or if like you're playing Tryndamere, it's like, okay, I can maybe hit her here now, but now like you weren't able to get in range, and then you E forward, and then she stuns you, walks away, right? And it's
and then you look like a goober, and you're like, this is dumb.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really like the good thing about playing like mechanical champions in League is that it helps you branch over once you start playing other champions, because you're already pretty much doing a pretty large percentage of what any other champion can do, right? Or even more. So when you go to the other ones, you can pick it up way faster, right? So I think that's like one of the things about it. But I wouldn't say necessarily like the players who play Riven just outlane everyone or whatever, right? It's not.
You don't think that's the case even in high elo? Because that's how it's always felt to me. I meant fundamentals. Like I don't know what it is, because if I see like, how do I frame this? Like if I bump into like a low elo Riven or like a low elo Garen, I feel like the low elo Riven is just looking like an absolute troglodyte, right? Because like the champion obviously is just going to make your bad. It's basically going to shine a big spotlight on how bad you are at the game.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas with like something like Garen or like a Shen, you kind of get your badness. It's like your badness is disguised a lot because you don't have the possibility of just botching a combo. Like how many times on Riven? Yeah, like how many times on Riven have you gone for a play and just been like, whoops?
No, for sure. I mean, that's why I think Riot, when Blastoise used to work in the with Riot, he used to publish out a bunch of the stats for champions, right? And I believe champions like Jax used to take like 50 to 100 games to get to 53% win rates with them. Right?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and then when they showed Riven, it's like you needed like 300 something games just to break even, just to go at like 50% winner if you were learning her when you were like low MMR, right? So it's definitely it's the same thing though. It's like if the champion has way more options, way more abilities to actually play the game, you also have way more ways of fucking up. So you end up just feeding constantly. That's how it is when you start with those champions for sure. But honestly, I wouldn't say there's like too many like quote unquote really really hard champions in league. You know who I really think is really difficult in league that most people wouldn't think so? I think GP is really really hard. I think
are you trying to flatter me?
No, I'm not. I'm really not. I play with like Solar a lot.
Yep, he's very good. Yep.
Yeah, he's really good at Gangplank, and I'm like, yo, like I can pick this champion. I can blow people. I pick him, and then I realize I'm like, wait a minute, like the fucking barrel combos in the middle of a fight when the AD carry is constantly trying to auto attack it and all this, so it's just like super super difficult.
Yeah.
The one thing is I don't like playing against the champion too much because it feels kind of coin flippy to me. It's like he just like holds the lane down really well, right? And then you 50-50 the game. He eventually starts slowly outscaling you, right? But the thing is, that usually in solo queue it doesn't matter because your team already decided whether they wanted to lose or win by that point. So you end up I look at Solar or any of the GP main, I look at their win rate, I'm like, oh cool, they have 700 games on GP. What's their win rate? 51%.
Yes,
like,
I wanna double on this because that's why I dropped him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what happened. I give Solar like a ton of credit in the world. I mean, I think I'm a good GP when I want to be, but he's done some things on Gangplank that I've seen in games where I go like, yeah, I've never made that play, so as far as I'm concerned, he's better than me, right? Like I don't really know. Yeah. Like I've played against him enough. Like I've played against him enough, and I've always felt like I always gave him his props because it's exactly what you said. I've told him in the past. I feel like I told him this like 2 years ago. Like,
no, I told him from the first day I started playing with him, and he annoyed me. And I told him, you need to drop that champion. And he said to me, why? I'm beating you up. I'm like, because you're literally gonna play 1,000 games, and you're literally gonna coin flip every single game.
I love it.
I said, play Irelia, play something like that, and you'll do way better. Irelia is not that good right now, but before when I was telling him, I'm like, just pick this champion. He ended up picking Irelia. And I'm like, just literally pick hyper carries that will give you win rates, man. Like good win rates, not coin flips.
That's what it is. It's so funny, you know, because a lot of you guys like it. When I start talking to a lot of other high elo players on these like chats, like I never really hear the perspective on stuff like that, and it's so funny that you have such a pinpoint, like the same exact alignment that I have with GP, because that's what I've been saying forever. And it's funny because as much as I love LS, like he always would fucking argue with me about this every single time I brought this up. He'd be like, well, GP is the best, blah blah blah, is the best laner in the game. And I'm like, Nick, no, like this champion, like it doesn't matter how good you are, this champion. Well, it is exactly what you said.
Yeah, here's the thing. LS looks at the game in a way where the players are competent and that they're going to play everything properly. So when it comes to like his opinions, when it to champion strength and all that, when it comes to competitive and all that, right? I'd say like they're very accurate, but they require a lot of practice, and it requires a lot of team decisions to be constantly like be made. And for solo queue, it's a completely different monster because you might be able to play perfectly as GP, but you're never gonna win enough to literally have like 60-something% win rates if you play all your games at the highest MMR, right? This is not like saying like, oh, unranked to challenger, and the guy has like a 90% inflated win rate from like going through low elo all the way to high elo. But at high level, I've never seen, even like the GP that he told me about like years ago when I was watching this, like studying him, I was looking at him, I was like, he's not like this. It's not as strong as he thinks, at least in solo queue. So I definitely, it's just that's a whole thing with LS. I respect him a lot, and he coached me a lot like years ago, and I learned a ton. And a lot of the ways that I approach game theory in general, like not even just League, any other game, comes from like how I learned with him. But I definitely see where you're coming from, where it's like, yo, like there's so many moments where he's like, oh, this champion is the best, or this is clearly amazing. It's like, well, not necessarily, because people are bad and people are not robots.
I have a very easier demo of why he's wrong about GP on the solo queue spectrum, and I'll tell you. I'm gonna give you the example right now. So when you watch pro play, it's basically similar to what you just said. So when you watch pro play, they're all like, you know, like you were saying, they're all legit and everybody knows what they're doing and they have a plan and they stick to it. But then you go into solo queue and you're like, all right, so the enemy team has a Yi, and he's 5-0 at 6 minutes.
Yep.
Like, what does GP do? It's like, all right, it's like a Katarina has 8 kills. What do you do now? It's like, well, you just go next because your champion literally can't do anything to this. There's not one creative, like, space-taking play that you can make as GP. It's like rush hysterics and hope she fucks up. It's like, yeah, nice joke. Like, it's totally different to say what you were saying with like Riven, or even something that's binary, like Tryndamere is super binary and super obvious, but like I'd rather have Tryndamere 9 times out of 10 over GP in a fucking solo queue environment, and it's not even.
Here's the way I look. Here's the way I look at it. You can tell me if like you disagree or not. But
okay.
I look at solo queue as a game where you don't play properly. It's just a game of adapting to your teammates' mistakes over and over. That's literally what it is. Like, it's not. It's literally adaptation. That is literally solo. It's not a place where you learn how to play the game better. It's a place where you test yourself, your mechanics, and your ability to carry people, or like properly. It's not because this is what happens. You win lane as GP, and you're like, okay, so this in this composition here, right? I shouldn't go team fight with my team right now. I should go into a split push situation against this champion because he can't deal with me and they can't 1v2, etc.
Yeah.
You think about that. You literally walk to lane, you start hitting the minion wave, and then your teammate randomly does a fight at Scuttle, like for no reason. There's no like it's like 15 minutes in, it's a Scuttle. There's no dragon, there's no Baron, nothing, and then you just die. You're like, oh, okay, well, there goes my
there goes that plan.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's great. Yeah, I'd take it a step further. I'd say it's not only adapting to your teammates' mistakes, it's basically finding out who the biggest idiot on the other team is too.
Oh,
it's like
sure.
There's always an idiot somewhere on the other team, and if you can find them and exploit them, it's kind of like poker. I always use poker comparisons with my league stuff, but it's kind of like that. It's like you're looking for the fish, essentially. Like you're looking for the moron that's like making the mistake so that you can punish that mistake. Autofill jungler going for Scuttle, like you said, or just like the guy, like say it's like you're laning with Riven. It's like you could pretty much tell right now, like if I'm facing you and you're playing Riven, you could tell pretty quickly if I misstep and you can punish me right away. You could be like, no, NEACE, you're a moron. Like you don't know this matchup. Here's why you lose. And it's like in like comp play, it's almost like you're not even really incentivized to fish for stuff like that. It feels like in comp play, at least from the matches that I watch, like the fishing and limit testing stuff that happens in solo queue is pretty rare in comp.
I think the reason that doesn't happen in competitive is because the matchups that are picked in competitive are very determined. They're pretty determined already before the match even begins, right? So let's say like they pick like Volibear versus Renekton or whatever that they end up picking. I don't really know. You already know how that lane state goes no matter what. Like you already know what happens the first 4 or 5 waves, so there's literally no like surprise that could happen because literally like high elo players, especially like the 1v1 servers that I see here and there that they're made, they literally do, for example, like Camille versus Riven, and then they'll literally go like they'll literally map out the first 4 waves to see what happens every time with if you have TP, like who gets the 4-wave crash, who doesn't get it, what happens if you have weak jungler versus strong jungler, right? And it's like there's nothing else to like see, right? So it's all, so the laning phase is already figured out. If you see a solo kill in pro play, it has to be because either like the player is like he really fucked up really hard his whole team and everyone's gonna be flaming him on social media like an hour, or they picked a matchup that's so like out there that no one even like decided to like practice, right?
Yeah.
So that's why you don't see that many things in competitive when it comes to like constant interaction and laning. Like in season 3, season 2, people were just calling for solo kills all the time, doing this. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, there is a lot of handshaking in comp, and I guess that's a fair assessment. It's that they've already kind of both.
Do you think it's just because of like the balance decisions that Riot's made over the years? Because I think that's one of the big things. Because it all feels so predetermined now, at least in high elo, right? It's all like, oh, you pick this and this beats that.
Yeah, very rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. It's not as interactive as it used to be.
Yeah. What do you think about, Wicked had this tweet a while back, and I'm honestly not like, sometimes Wicked says some shit and I'm like, dude, I don't know about that, buddy. Like, but he did have a pretty good point. At least I thought it was a good point. He had a tweet and he said something along the lines, I don't know, like the verbatim, but it was like, the reason why this game is kind of like, the pacing of it is off and everything's kind of weird is because minions just die instantly now. That was his theory, is that like if minions were just a little bit tankier so that you couldn't just ignore waves all the time and just run around the map, then the game wouldn't feel so, like you said, decided. Because to me, it feels like that's pretty much what you play for in your lanes.
Yeah.
Like,
matchups don't feel like you're trading, like at least like the ones that you pick in draft that are like even matchups and not just like you're getting shit on matchups, are actually played not by the champion kits like 1v1. They're played by how they manipulate the waves, literally. So it's like maybe that could change the game in a different manner, but I think at the same time, it's like if you probably put a player now in this season, right, and you put them back in like season 3, season 4, I actually wonder if like they would just they would use these wave strats, right?
Oh yeah, it would be like the time chamber. Yeah, the guy would look like he's
like he's Faker himself, right? Like, it's like, is it that the game has changed or people have gotten smarter? I think it's like a combination of both for sure. But it's like I said, it's like it's so difficult to actually get a game off in League nowadays, especially like just in high MMR, just where it's like constant action. Like whenever I see a Fiora or a Trinity or anything like that, I'm like, holy fuck, I get to play the game. This is actually sick. This is fun. But 90% of the time, it's like Gragas, Volibear, and then you see that like the enemy jungler picks Hecarim or whatever. Like this, like everyone knows the 4 picks to pick for each lane, and then it's just okay. So now let's wait and see which one of us in our team or their team decides to just randomly enter and run this game down. So that's literally how League feels nowadays, anyway. But you know, I was thinking about, you know, how you were saying about fishing for the player that's always messing up and all that. Riot. I remember they had in season 8 the system where like we had like Diamond 1 challenger queues. Literally, like you would queue up and you would get the match in like 20 seconds. And it used to be that you'd have like 2 challengers on like 2 or 3 challengers on each team, right? And then the other ones were like D2, D1s, and everyone was like, yo, the D1 is bot lane. Jill, we gotta gank the hell out of this motherfucker. He doesn't know what he's doing. And then they reset the whole ladder because they're like, shit, we fucked up. Okay, they're just bullying the hell out of the D1s. And that's where I was like, you can clearly see the difference in skill between like diamonds and challengers. It's like the challengers are literally sharks. You're just running around, you're just waiting for blood.
Sharks is the poker term, by the way, too. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's literally what it is. I mean, it's what the game kind of has become. And I honestly, and to keep using my poker comparisons, so if you go and you play poker online, like if you play it like Poker Stars or whatever, right? It used to be you could just stalk people. Like, so say for example, you find an opponent at Poker Stars at a poker table who's just like really bad, right? And he's just a whale. Like he's just losing money every time he sits down at the table. You used to be able to add these motherfuckers to your friends list on Poker Stars. And so basically when you have some rich dumbass sit down at the table would immediately fill. Right? Because they were like, yeah. So they were basically using the data. And I got to thinking about League, and this is, you know, I hope that my opinions on dodging become more like people agree, right? But I know the community, I think you're gonna probably agree with what I'm about to say, but I don't think the community does. I think generally the community, like lower elo players, thinks that what I'm about to say is kind of ridiculous. And that is basically that I think dodging should just be an auto loss. Like I think you just lose, personally. And I think
in every MMR?
No. Okay. Diamond 4 and up. When you cross diamond, that should be the imaginary line where it's like you're now playing real League of Legends ranked, right? Like this is ranked now. This is how it should be. And so when you dodge, you just lose. It's okay if you had to, you know, you lose the game. It's not a big deal. If you had to go somewhere, shit DCs, it doesn't matter. When you press okay, we can't trust the players anymore to act in good faith with the game. So we have to do, you have to basically make it so that when they join a game and the draft happens, you got to try hard in the draft. Right. And the other thing that I wish would happen, although I don't know if this is even possible, but this is just like my utopia. First off, I don't think that first solution is even that utopian. I think that's just how it should be. But the second solution would be, I think you should be able to opt out of stuff like op.gg because of what I just told you about the poker thing. For
that one, I 100% agree. And I wish they could do it where you could just go in champ select with like hidden names and everything, because the moment I go into champ select, even I don't dodge ever, but like I'll get like 3 players that I really know like they're just going to run it down. And I'm like, damn, I should really dodge. But that's me. Like 90% of other people just dodge them, right?
Every time,
like, if they had a different name, I would never even think about this. So for sure, I want that for sure. And as for the first point, like for dodging, I would be down for it if like literally like if the team has like a troll and the 4 players report him in champs, like then that guy literally gets like 12-day like can't play ranked because he got reported by 4 people. Like if it was extreme punishment for people that decided to like make everyone lose that game, it would be good. Like I'd be down for it. But if it's not, and it's just an auto loss, and then like trolls just straight up just dominate the whole ladder, just fucking making people permanently dodge and dodge and dodge, and just auto loss. It would
I
suck,
see what you're saying. Yeah, the counterpoint there is like this scenario where a bunch of people, but I also think that inevitably the people that are trolling are just, everybody's going to get trolls evenly. And so the trolls should just drop. And people that actually don't know how to play the game should just drop, as long as they're, you know,
that's assuming it's not, that's assuming there's no ill intent behind that player, because there's some players that are legitimately good enough to just climb up, and then they just do that because they're assholes, right? Like they're just,
that's fair.
They're gonna ruin people's days. So it's like,
yeah, how common is that though? I know it's pretty common enough to where you're pointing it out, but
yeah, it's pretty common. I'd say it's not. Dude, you gotta remember, like, at least with NA and the ladder and everything, like the ladder's been filled with win trading, boosting, and people just being assholes to each other for like the longest time, like literally like 6 + 7 years since I can remember, man. So, it's like, can people be assholes? Yeah, there's a pretty good chance they are. Like, I don't really have any hopes for like a large percentage of people being like super good to each other. It's kind of a shame, really, because the more I play team games, right, I was like, and this is my thought when I started playing, right? When I was like in season 2 and I was 14, I was like, I don't care, I can play this video game and I can hyper carry my teammates if I play perfectly, and they're gonna do this and they're gonna do that. And then I realized years after, I'm like, damn, these people just don't learn ever, man. It's like,
yeah,
I lost so much hope in terms of like the team play. That's why I end up like playing a lot of like just solo games nowadays. And I just play like League for my stream, and just like whenever I want to test out new champions or new stuff they come out with. But yeah, it's crazy, man. You know what I did like though? Core JJ made some in-house servers for like a while back.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
And I played on it for a while, and it was really fun. But you know what happened? And this is a cool story. We were going into the matches, and let's say like a Academy 80 carry would play with a support from solo queue, like 100 or 200 LP master solo queue player. And I would be playing against Niall's top lane, and all you hear bot lane's like, oh, they keep dying, right? They keep dying, and then the AD carry gets really, he starts getting really, really tilted, and he's like, oh my, like even like for 1 second, he said, this guy's like, what are you doing? Like it's like slightly flaming him. And then by the end of the match, no one queued up after on that in-house, and I literally got DM'd after by Niles. He's like, yo, like the guy that was playing AD carry, I forget his name, was like, yo, is this support like win trading or something? Who is this guy? So then they ended so even though we had that whole communication going, right, with everything, and the matches are actually pretty cool, there were games where like they were just like, nah, we can't do this. The level of quality is still way too low to actually play. So it didn't even fix that many things. And then the thing is, after is that the pros don't queue up at all, or they didn't queue up at all. So I was literally the one with like 3 other top laners queuing. And I'm like, bro, I'm a fucking streamer. You guys get paid to play this game. Why aren't you guys queuing up? What is this? And they were, it didn't make sense, right?
So what do you think that is though? You think it's just like, do you think it's just we're doomed? Like as a community, do you think we just get too? I get mad when I lose, and I think people are fucking up. Do you think it's just like that? Like we just can't handle it, like the high elo players?
I don't know if it's a. Oh, sorry, 1 sec.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, give me a minute real quick. I'll be right back.
You're fine. NA will forever be the team server. Yeah, Brett. Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, there you are. Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. My Discord crashed. Like it was fucked, and then I tried to fix it. I don't know what happened. Anyway.
Yeah, what were we talking about? No, you're good. You're good. What were we talking about though?
We were talking about the.
Oh, you were talking about that. You were talking about in-houses. Yeah. So, anyways, I was like, do you think that we as this community are just too like, we just get too salty when we lose, and that's just how it is?
I think players just look to blame something instantly, right? Where like anything in their play, they don't like look at their own gameplay enough, and then they look for outer things to like blame, right? So it ends up being a situation where this is not related to the in-house thing, because in the in-house thing there was really like the support player that was in there, right? 200 LP Masters did not play like a 200 LP Masters player, right? So he was struggling really hard. I think in higher MMR for us, there's not enough players that play at that level for it to be even, right? And I've never played in Europe. You played in Korea for a while, right?
I did. Yeah.
So did it feel like it was like that level? Like, is the level of skill there must be much more, I mean, it is much higher than what we can get here in
It's
NA,
higher,
sure.
but the games just they play to game, and they don't really play to like do this weird like NA culture thing where they like parade the loss around for 20 minutes. Do you know what I mean? Like when I play on this server, I often feel like the players, like they've decided that they have, or they figured out that they have more agency by being a dickhead. And I don't know why. I don't know. It definitely feels like an American thing, honestly. If we're like I hate doing the whole like our country, worst country type of shit. But like, I don't really know what else it could be, because in Korea, they'll just be like, this game is a loss, and they might troll you, but they'll just end the game. Like the game, they'll just open the shit. Like it won't be this weird like, look at my shitty team. And then it's like, okay, well, can we just like vote? Can we like open? No. Yeah. I want to make you feel my pain. And it's like,
yeah, see, I've never understood that.
Yeah.
I've never understood that in these games. That literally happened to me yesterday while streaming.
Yeah, I know. I'm not talking out of my ass. That's literally how it is. Like,
yeah, they literally start trolling and they won in the game. But yeah, it's, I don't know what I think it's like related to like server population and then like the education that people have, right? It's like different. Like here, there's so many there are so many people that I don't know, man. I don't know what they're thinking. They play like I've seen so many people that play thousands and thousands of games. They play more than me, and I stream this game for a living, right?
Yep. I talk about that all the time. Yeah. And
they're not willing to self-improve or anything. They just queue up to the next game just to troll again and to troll again. But they think in their mind that they're doing fine, right? Or that there's nothing wrong, but then they just keep playing and playing, hoping for a different outcome every time. It doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I've given up in terms, like, I try to help out Challenger and Master players, right? Or like Diamond players as well. Like if they want to learn something about matchups or just in general with the game, right? Which I think helps out. But even they realize when I see their games and I see them trying this hard, right? And they're like improving a lot, and they're actually getting in. They're starting to get into my games too. When I play with them now in high elo too, and it's like, damn, like the people around them are just messing up so much. I think there's people that lack the motivation, you know, to like improve and just want to have that competitive spirit, right? They don't like. There's not that many people in NA that have it, but the people that do have it, you notice them in solo queue right away. You're like, damn, I love playing with this guy, right? Or I love playing with these specific individuals. But then I feel like there's more people where you go in solo queue, you go into your champ select right now, for example, you're like, oh, I got this fucker again. Like, oh, I got this. That's more of the feeling that you get than going like, oh, I got this really good player. I got this really good player. No, it's like, oh my God, I got this guy again and this guy again. And that's the constant feeling every time you queue up. And it's like, oh, well, you know, it is what it is. So like I said, that's why the best way to like not break your mental when it comes to solo queue or just playing games like this in general, whether you're playing Valorant or anything like that, is to literally just focus on yourself and not necessarily care about the win condition at the end. Just focus on like what you're doing. If you played the thing or like the matchup or the game to the best of your abilities and you did as little mistakes as possible, that's it. You should consider that a win in a way, right?
Yeah, you consider it like I always call them auto losses, but I rarely credit a game with an auto loss these days, where it's like, yeah, I lose no matter what I do here. Like it's more of just kind of like, well, like, yeah, my team sucks, but I could have did X, Y, and Z probably better, so whatever, right? Like it's fine. And I think a lot of people really struggle with that, like, just they rationalize it, like you said. They immediately rationalize it the other way, to the point of where it's just like, yeah, team sucks, go next or whatever. And it's just like you say, you've got a guy who's been sitting in the same bracket for like 2,000 games or whatever the hell it is, and he's still making the same mistake, and he's still on full autopilot. And then you come cruising in and you're just like, well, hey man, look, like I know you play all day, but like I'm actually queuing up to win, so if you could just like stop pretending that you're better than you are and just like, let's try to win this game right now, like it would probably make you a little bit better at the game. And then they go into the NA mentality where they're like,
they go into full denial and they start like, if you're lower elo than them, they're like, Diamond 1 player or Master player, you just peaked 50 LP Masters or whatever, and they start flaming each other, right?
Yeah.
And then if a high elo player tells them something, they'll instantly look for something. So if I tell them, I'm like, hey man, listen, you probably shouldn't do that thing there because, you know, it fucks up the game state, etc. They go like, shut up, you Riven 1 trick. You know what you're talking about. I'm like, bro, why? Like, we're even talking about this play. Why are you even trying to like insult me? Or like, it doesn't even make sense. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Like, I'm just trying to help you.
Yeah, they don't view it. It's a very isolationist game, and it's one that I find it interesting though. It's like you said, as soon as you accept that you're bad though, and you start actually working on it and like trying to be like, you know, these people are better than me, like. As soon as you recognize, or not even better than you, just like that they're approaching the game in a healthier way. Like, I feel like you immediately, like if you study the game, like let me give you an example from like the boot camp that I did, okay? So it's like, all right, I'm gonna be coaching like all these roles and all these people in these roles, and I'm gonna come up with content. So I started doing jungle stuff. And then I did clears. I started working on clears. I realized my clears were like actually terrible. Like they were really bad. But like the only reason that I even got to the point of like recognizing that my clears were as bad as they were was because I started going like, I would need to teach this to somebody. Like I need to be able to like articulate this. So I was doing like Mundo jungle, and like one of the challenges in the thing was I did 3 attempts at a Mundo clear based on like what I knew about clearing, and I got to like 309 on the Mundo clear, like doing like chickens, red, golems, and then reset and go wolves, blue, gromp, and then you have the clear. And I got like 309. And then someone immediately in the boot camp who was training on it got like a 303, which as far as I was concerned, that's a fucking record. That's like a world record. And I was like, oh shit, like this guy knows some stuff. So I had him show me what he did, right? Like I was like, show me. And then he showed me. It's like, okay, I'm not kiting the red well enough. I'm not backing at the perfect time. I'm not standing in the perfect spots. And it's like by the end of the boot camp, like, now, if I play Mundo Jungle, it's like my clear looks, my clear is like immaculate. But the only reason is because I went ahead and I was like, okay, I don't know this and I want to be able to explain it to other people. So how can I know it better? Right? If I never, if I never crossed that hurdle, then I would be demonstrably worse at the game from now.
Yeah, that's why I also like getting input from other players too, because you might think you know everything, or like you might know everything to a certain extent where you think you're comfortable with it. But even then, I like to personally go like, okay, so let me talk to other challenger players or other players that I really respect, and it's like their thoughts, just get their thoughts on it, right? Because other perspectives also just help you a ton, because you see those little things, you improve on them, right? And you definitely have to be able to look at your own gameplay and be like, okay, what can I do better? Right? And then that's where you start expanding and you start improving, and then eventually once you find the optimal way of doing doing that thing that you're looking for that champion or role, right, then it just becomes, you can turn that into autopilot, and then it just becomes easy, and then it's just self-improvement. But people never start at that step for some reason. They just do what they think works initially, and then they keep doing that forever, and then they wonder why stuff doesn't work out properly. And it's just I think it's just a lot of people have the problem with when it comes to playing well, any game really, or whether it's poker or anything. They don't know how to learn, right? Learning is a skill, I've noticed, for most people, and because people just go, for example, they go looking for a guide, but they don't understand. They'll be like, okay, I'll do this build, but they don't understand why they're doing that build, or I'll do this clear, but they don't understand if they're doing that optimal clear, when they should do it based on like matchups, etc. So it's like it goes deeper than that, but people always stop at the first step because they're not able to, just either because they haven't learned how to do that yet, right? Because I don't, when I started playing the game when I was 14, right, I didn't know how to do any of that shit. I just played and I grinded a ton for like 3 months, right?
Yeah.
And that's how I think 99% of people that play any game, whether it's like whatever it is, chess, poker, whatever it is, they probably grinded it a ton. And then later, once they got into like a plateau, they're like, okay, so now how do I get to the next step, right? How do I start learning more from more like the fundamentals that I have right now? And it's actually rare to see people with that mindset ever get stuck in like lower levels or anything like that. I've never seen anyone that has that mindset be stuck down there for like very long. It's usually like a week or something like that, or like even like a month.
Like if they actually like believe in what they're being, because I've had some weird cases where it's like, I'll have a guy who clearly, like, I had a guy in the boot camp who did the games, and then as soon as I like watched him play, he was just like not practicing the concepts that like he said he was practicing, right? And it was like,
really,
yeah, it was in the sense of like maybe he didn't understand them, you know, maybe he didn't understand what I taught or whatever, but like there's definitely, I agree with you though overall that like if you have the mindset of like, okay, I'm not as good as I think I am, like you'll immediately start to see improvement. In fact, it's one of my biggest regrets at being a part of the league community is like when I started making content, I did exactly what you said, is like I grinded a lot, and I regret not having a coach sooner teach me stuff, or just having somebody, like just last night I was playing, I was doing my Tryndamere mid stuff with my other coach Colin, and we were trying some stuff out because I was curious. And it was like I left that experience immediately knowing more than if I'd played fucking 8 hours of solo queue, because he immediately showed me like a Tristana matchup and he plays it right, and I go, okay, no Tristanas in solo queue really play it this way and play it right, so now I know, and it was so much more efficient.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I mean?
100%.
So much more efficient,
coaching. That's where I can tell you, like when I got coached by LS, right, and I started like learning about everything, like learning how to learn, right.
Like
everything became so much easier, right. So coaching actually like definitely helps you. I would I hate that thing where like you start off a game and you grind like 1,000 hours or like done or like 5,000 hours to get before you start getting good, but you still don't understand how stuff happens, right. I never want to do it, and I never ever want to do that with any other game. I did that when I was 14 and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I never want to do that again. It's so much easier to have someone there help you for sure, and it's you start learning all these concepts and then you can build up from there, as opposed to just because then what happens as well is that you'll be really good at that one thing you grinded, but you try to do anything else, even though it might be similar, you're not going to be as good, right? Or you're not going to pick it up as well. So let's say like you play League, right? And now you pick up Dota. I'm sure that you could get to a pretty high level in Dota fairly quickly, right? But if you put someone who just grinded League for, I don't know, like 5,000 games and they're in Platinum 1, and you put them in Dota, it might take them, there's no way in like a month or two they're going to get to that level in Dota as they would in League, right? So because they haven't thought about those fundamentals initially anyway, and they're just grinding whatever champion they played, and they don't have any thought process, so it kind of it stumps them.
I love this. I love this concept though, because it's so fucking true, and I really appreciate it, because when I did like the Fortnite stint for a while, that's pretty much how I got decent at Fortnite. But like grind? But it was like a big, but it was like such a but it was like, now I look back on it and I'm like, the people that really outshone everybody in Fortnite, like I obviously placed in like the Winter Royale and did some comp stuff there. But like I didn't get like top 20, which was my aim when I did it. I was trying to get into at least like the top 20 range, and I never got there. And one of the things, I think one of the biggest reasons that I didn't get there was because my expediency on getting into the scene where it was like all the pros playing together and like really studying the game. It's like you said, your mechanics cap out pretty quick, actually. And you have the talent or you don't, I feel. And so like after a certain point, you're just going to ram your head into the wall, and like, yeah, you're going to make little bits of progress every 100, 200, 300 games, like you're saying. But really the biggest jumps in skill come when you just like stop and go. I love that you were talking about like bypassing the grind, because that's really, I wish I would have done that too. I wish I would have just been like right away, like, who's the best Fortnite player? And I'm going to pay them like 1K to just coach me. Like, fuck it. I'm just going to pay him for like 5 days of coaching or whatever, and like space it out. Yeah. Right? And then by the end of it, I would have been so much better, so much faster because of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's the way you think about it. Like at least for me, like when I'm playing other games right now, for example, I started learning Street Fighter a couple months ago.
Oh yeah.
Nice. I started learning Street Fighter, and I'm already at a pretty high level, but it's not because I'm grinding. It's because I'm like taking the time to understand it, right? I started there's this game I've been playing too, Dragon Ball, that I play in my champion select, whatever. I'm just waiting queue, you know, the 50-minute queue times.
Of course.
And I'm literally like not grind. Like if it was like old me, like 14-year-old me, and I was playing a new game for the first time, I would be like just spamming the hell out of this game, right? Yes. And I wouldn't be learning as much. But now, like, it's easier for me to just like I said, like you get people that know how to play the game, you understand, that understand the game, you learn from them, right? you start actually thinking about the game, right? And you start learning all these concepts that transfer over to every game, by the way. So now I'm playing in like the competitive scene for that game, and I just won like a tournament literally like 2 days ago with like high level like pro players a couple of days ago.
That's awesome, dude.
And I got 3rd place yesterday, and it's like, oh, this is sick, right? But I'm not hard grinding. Like grinding that hard caps you. It literally does. It's better to think about the game.
Yeah, this was a pleasure, and thanks so much for following up. I know initially you're like, I don't know if I want to talk to this fucking
nah, dude, it wasn't like that.
You're like, man, this fucking guy, I don't know about this guy's shady.
You know, I love you, bro.
Yeah, man, same. I will definitely I'll hit you up, in a few months. Maybe we'll run it back.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Always done.
Yeah, man. Good luck on your streaming and everything. I think you're an awesome player. Otherwise, I wouldn't have reached out. And that's pretty awesome that you're finding success in fighters and everything. And just keep on keeping on, dude. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. No, thank you, man. Appreciate it.